Hermit crabs will change shells whenever they get bigger. So just like whenever you need new shoes because your feet are getting too big, a hermit crab will go out and find a new shell. My name is Cindy Khatri, and we are at the Midwest Museum of Natural History. Hermit crabs are small crabs that you can find on shorelines, and they're actually crustaceans, which are a type of arthropod. So an arthropod is an animal that has an exoskeleton. And an exoskeleton is when your skeleton is on the outside of your body. Other types of arthropods can include spiders, trilobites, insects. So whenever you see a bee or an ant, you're actually looking at an arthropod. Hermit crabs have some really awesome features. So they have two eye stalks, which have their eyes on the very tip of them. And so they'll be able to move their eyes around to have a greater range of vision. They also have antennae that help them to smell their surrounding area. So part of being an arthropod and having an exoskeleton means that whenever you get bigger, you need to do something called molt. And that is when an arthropod will shed its skeleton and have a really soft skeleton underneath. After a hermit crab molt, it might look like there's an extra hermit crab in the enclosure, except it's just the shedded exoskeleton of that same hermit crab. Hermit crabs do not make their own shells. Instead, they find shells on the coast, so that could be a shell from a snail or another animal, and they'll make it their home. Hermit crabs can live in two different places. So there are marine hermit crabs and there are land hermit crabs. So marine hermit crabs will live in salt water, and land hermit crabs can live on the shoreline and coastal areas that are really tropical. Hermit crabs live near the coast and in tide pools because typically those will be warmer climates and they need a lot of water and humidity in the air. Hermit crabs actually have gills instead of regular lungs, and without all of that water in the air or in their home, they wouldn't be able to breathe. Depending on the species, hermit crabs can really range in size. They can be about this big to about this big. Hermit crabs are great scavengers. They can actually eat almost anything. Here at the museum, we feed our hermit crabs fruits, veggies, and even sometimes some chicken. Crabs actually are very social animals, and they love living in huge packs. In the wild, you can find hermit crabs living in packs to be about 100 hermit crabs big. And that's really because they like to be where a lot of shells are. So whenever a hermit crab leaves a shell, there's usually another hermit crab looking for that. So they are very social animals, and without each other, they get pretty depressed. So you can tell a hermit crab is sad when they're not really very active. So a happy hermit crab should be crawling around, really active with their friends, and sometimes they'll even sleep next to each other. Hermit crabs can actually make really great pets as long as you don't have a single hermit crab by itself. Again, hermit crabs are really social animals, so even though they are called hermit crabs, you're gonna want at least 2 or 3. And hermit crabs are really playful. They're a lot of fun. They'll climb around. They'll be active more in the evening. And they're pretty easy to maintain as long as you have salt water, fresh water, a lot of humidity in that enclosure, warm temperatures, and some sand for them to live in. Animal enrichment is really important with hermit crabs, so you can decorate your enclosure with a lot of different things like driftwood and rocks. Sometimes you can even put a ladder in there and they'll climb up and down. The important thing is to just make sure that you're rotating your decorations out so they don't get too bored. If you find a hermit crab in the wild, it's always best to leave an animal in its home, especially since if you were to find a single hermit crab in a tide pool, you'd be taking it away from all of its family and friends. And as we know, hermit crabs like to have a lot of friends around them. If you'd like to learn more about hermit crabs, you can come to the Midwest Museum of Natural History here in downtown Sycamore or visit us at www.mmnh.org.